Hey, it's Rishi Patel, founder of Selling in Alignment, where I help coaches and consultants to price and package their products and services using the black belt mindset so they can discover and live their purpose. Today, I'm joined with Jonathan Hughes. In his 37 years of experience, Jonathan has been described as many things: brand strategist, creative facilitator, and conceptual copywriter. He's also been the former head of copy for a top London design agency. His clients, who have included everyone from Abbey and Accenture to Guinness and St Paul's Cathedral, love what Jonathan achieves for them. He invites his clients to join him on an eye-opening creative journey that typically has deeply profound results, enabling them to see the full undiluted value of what they offer, to attract the clients they really want far more easily, to create new alignment and productivity amongst their teams, which finally leads to powerful and lasting impact on their bottom line. His work is infused with a love of language, performance, and of personal growth, driven by a passion and talent for two things: for making visible those stories that are crying out to be told, and for finding that sweet spot where creativity and breakthroughs cross over. Let's talk to Jonathan. Hey, Jonathan, thank you so much for making it down. Great to have you here. And I want to take it all the way back to the beginning. What was your first interaction with Selling in Alignment?
So my first interaction, it was a beta training program to do with pricing and packaging through a mutual friend, Tony Wynyard. That was the very first interaction.
Great. And what stood out to you?
A couple of things stood out. One was to do with your approach, and the other was sort of what I was needing at the time. So in terms of your approach, the way that this world of martial arts and the black belt mindset and so forth crossed over with application to sales. So I knew that there was something I needed around on the selling front, but the fact where it was coming from really resonated with me, that sort of spiritual dimension. Yeah.
Right, okay, great. And you've actually mentioned so many of the things I want to talk about and brought them to the forefront already, which is great. And I love that that really resonated with you. And I remember that that was a beta training, and off the back of that, you gave me some really good feedback. And I've got a quote here from you actually, which I'm just going to read out. You've brought some solidity and structure to something that I have been notoriously flaky around most of my working life, other than working by the hour. So to have that solidity again is massively appreciated. And I'd love you to tell me, what you meant by that. What was there for you around that?
I think the last time where there was a real solidity, I was head of copy at a design agency, where in that agency environment, I had to clock my hours. I had to do certain things in that environment. And having since, you could say, followed my heart to some very interesting places, being on my own, I think with a background in being a creative, that's where all my focus has been. All my focus has been on delivering the project. And so there's an area around that I'd just not paid attention to. And I, at some conscious, subconscious level, I knew it was missing. And in being on that beta training with you, I thought, I know this is a piece I've been missing. So that there's a structure, a rhythm and a flow to how I'm doing what I'm doing. So if you like, so I'm there for myself.
Okay.
I knew I wasn't being there for myself in the way that I was there for my clients.
Right.
And so that structure piece of it really hit a nerve for me. So
really well identified. And it's interesting because very early on in this process, we identified that you were charging nowhere near where you should have been for your level of experience. And I just want to pull out an extract from a coaching session because I've got an exact quote here from you for what you said. And what you said was, because I think that there's a small piece of me that questions, can I make a handsome living from doing what I love? And there's a piece of me that doesn't think I can. And I'd just love to tap into that a little bit more. Where were you in relation to charging what you should have been charging? And how did that make you feel at the time?
The feeling, there was a mixture of feelings. It was quite a cocktail of feelings. In part, I think there was actually a piece of shame. It's like, why am I not charging my worth? Why is that? And at the same time, I know there was a huge piece of gratitude because I knew it was something that I needed to address, and I hadn't been. And because I didn't know how, I think I'd just been avoiding it. So the feeling was a mixture of things, and as well, I think there's a piece of relief in there. It's like, now we're going to address this. We're going to address this little. It's like the pea under the mattress, or whatever you want to call it, but it's the nub of the issue that needs addressing. You know, the way I value myself.
So you have such a great awareness around that. And I guess my question to you is, back then, what stopped you from charging more?
It's funny. With hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? I think because my focus was on serving the client. So I would get a call from a client, can you take this on? Yes, I can. How can I delight the client with the creativity? I think my way of seeing things was that if I focus on delivering something great to the client, then the pricing will kind of take care of itself.
Right.
It's not even something I have to look at. If I just plug away and do the best I can for the client and show them how great, somehow that pricing stuff will take care of itself. And so, if you like, there's a slightly reactive way of me doing things.
Sure.
As opposed to a proactive way of thinking, what is it that I need to charge here? And making that the start point. But I think as well that there was something about avoiding it because it was difficult. Mm-hmm. There was something inside that was slightly uncomfy about it because as a creative, I love to delight my client. So the idea of taking a large amount of money out of their wallet, they won't like that, that's going to upset them, so I better not go there.
Right.
So it's almost like a place not to go to, a place to avoid. And so I think that awareness had been quite buried for some time. And it's like, crikey, this needs looking at.
And it's great that you mentioned the avoidance because from a coaching perspective, I could see that. And it's great that you brought that to the awareness, to the forefront yourself through the questions I asked, which is brilliant. It's completely common, and I wouldn't say that it's related just to creatives. I guess my next question for you was, when we started out, right at the beginning, if there was something that was keeping you up at night, that you just wanted to bring transformation to, you could wave a magic wand and just say, Rishi, if you can help me with this one thing, or if you can just help me with these 3 things, what would you say that was? Okay.
I think one is around clients not quite getting what I offer. So, they say that, we will teach the thing that we most need to learn. And so I've often said, one of the great things I love to do is hold a mirror up to clients and think, oh my God, so that's who I am. So people really start getting them and their value becomes visible. And for many years, I've been something of an enigma. People go, what is it you do? And they didn't quite get me. And so there was a frustration there. There's something crazy here. It's like, wanting to walk my talk. Well, I help people. I help bring clarity to what people do, and yet people don't get me. That's insane. So I suppose the first thing would be that the clients I really want to work with would get my value. They'd see my value. It would be obvious, if you like. The second thing was around a rhythm to my work. Once there's a rhythm and a structure to my work, then I can be in flow. And without that, it's almost like if there isn't a dance, it's hard to get into a rhythm. Simple as that. And so I knew I needed a structure as well. So I think sometimes I would lose my sense of where I was in a process. And so one of the things, coming back to that magic wand that would be great, I realised, was to, okay, what's the process and where am I at in that process? To have a real clarity about those 2 things.
So partway during the process, we just took a real honest look at, here's your level of experience. Here's who you are for these clients. But this is what you're charging. Mm-hmm. What did that bring up for you, and what were the feelings associated around that when we just really took an honest look?
It was a very powerful session. It was maybe the most powerful session that we did. And it was like shining this torch at this place of darkness that I hadn't looked at for some time. I'm doing great work for clients that they love. there was one client said, I said to you, I really, really, really love what you've just done for me, Jonathan, and I wasn't charging my worth.
Wow.
And so there's a kind of a craziness to it, and also this. I think there was a sense of relief as well that it was being addressed. Thinking, we're now going to change this. We're going to change this because it isn't okay.
Right.
And so that sense of not letting myself down, and mixed in with it, there was a realization: if I'm eating into my capacity to serve clients, then I'm not really serving them. So I think along this journey, there's been this dual realization that my clients will only really get my value when I get it. And so I think that session was the beginning of unraveling that. Right. And me realizing, when are you going to take a stand for yourself in terms of how that conversation begins? So I think the thoroughness of some of the processes we've done is going right back to that very first interaction with a client. From that moment, who am I being? Who am I being? How do I value myself? And if that is rock solid at the start, then things fall into place.
So well said. And I'm so glad that you said, who am I being? Because that is a big part of my coaching, where we just really look at the being. Because I genuinely believe everything starts from there. Through this process, it's very natural that we do all of this work on ourselves. And hats off to you, because you really went to town on taking this to another level. You made yourself very coachable, and we really worked on your level of self-belief, self-confidence. And I know that one of the things that you shared with me that was on your vision board was that you wanted to manifest a relationship. And that happened inside of this process as well, which wasn't our focus, but through working on other aspects of your self-belief, you brought that to the forefront. And I think that's just amazing. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
What can I say? I've not been in a relationship for a long time, so I could have been a monk for a decade, So some people would say, I'm a I don't think this is swearing. I'm a fussy bugger. So in terms of who I work with, in terms of who I'm in a relationship with, and there was a point where I thought, I'm not sure I'm going to find someone that I really want to be with, and I also find really attractive, because companionship and fireworks, I want both those things, and if it's not there, I'm not interested. And I know that because of the journey that we've been on, there's a momentum to my life. There's something about being very present to who I am and my choices. So I think when you could say a beautiful opportunity came by, I wasn't going to ignore it. And so I think as well, there's been with certain clients, and we may talk about this later, there's been certain courageous conversations. So there's something about seizing the moment and thinking, okay, I'm not going to let this opportunity pass by. And it's been, it's 3 months or so in, and there's a solidity there, and there's a dear friend saw the first picture and said, like peas in a pod. So I have a very strong feeling that we're meant to be together, and it's very natural, and I know that it's linked to me having an extra degree of self-confidence. I don't think in some ways, I don't think I'm a person who's been lacking in confidence, but there's an extra layer to it, and I think it'd be a bit dumb to say there isn't a correlation between the work that we've been doing and the shifts that I've been feeling. There's maybe a magnetism that in terms of magnetizing the clients I want, but also magnetizing the relationships I want. And you could say, bring that back, if I have a deeper sense of who I am, what I want, and a greater capacity to manifest those things, then I think there's a correlation both in terms of the business relationships and also in terms of this. It's a very beautiful relationship that's unfolding as we speak. So clear.
And I love that you put it that way. And that was actually where I was going to go to next, because see, what you're describing there is exactly that. See, what relationships in essence have the same core concepts behind them. And where we work on one area and refine something, about relationship to self, then relationships to clients, romantic relationships, other relationships with siblings, all of these things start to really have a transformation brought about. I'm just exceptionally happy for you. I think it's just fantastic that happened.
Oh, it's a very lovely thing. And I think there's something about welcoming the difficult stuff, both in working relationships and elsewhere. It's like really welcoming, because there's this lovely expression about our tyrants are our teachers. If there's any moment that feels a little uncomfy, there's learning here. So to have that welcoming of slightly tricky things, and actually embracing it and welcoming, there's learning here. That applies to business relationships and to other relationships. So there's something about an excitement that I've got plenty of reasons to be excited about different aspects of my life. Yeah, let's put it that way.
So Jonathan, anyone that knows about my stuff knows that I talk a lot about the black belt mindset. And it's this set of principles that I use to deliver coaching. So the black belt mindset is 3 key principles: intention, balance, and flow. Right? So you can't have one without the prior one. So you can't achieve the balance without setting an intention. You can't achieve flow without having the balance. How would you say you have applied these in your day-to-day business?
I think there's, with all 3 of those aspects that you mentioned, I've noticed a shift. So in terms of, I think intentionality has been huge in terms of our work together. So I think that's been pivotal in the nature of my relationships with clients, changing from being reactive, oh hi, can you do some work for me? Sure, I can help, to proactive. What is it I need to earn? What is the amount I want to hit this month? How do I go about it? Who do I reach out to? So I think there was one particular conversation where I said, I really wanted to hit this income target this month. So there was a string of actions I took with the client to make sure that invoice came in that month. So that intentionality has been huge. Intentions for the month, for the year, for beyond. Balance has been huge as well. In my work, I do get quite immersed in the creative process, and I realise sometimes it's important to balance what hats I wear. So there's a point where it's important to take off the creative hat, and pull on another hat. And I think I said to you once, it's a little bit like the idea of a captain and a diver. So you've got the captain on the boat and the diver that dives in. So I can be going into quite deep depths as a creative, but there's a point, come on mate, time to come up. There's being there for me. I think that by balancing the hats, I'm better able to be there for me.
Amazing.
And the result of that flow is so important to me, because for me, I think we're all creative. We're all born to turn, birds are born to fly, fish are born to swim, human beings, we turn thoughts into things. So there's that flow from articulated intentions to realised intentions. So I think it's been huge for me to step into that during this process and actually walk my talk by being in flow. So that's been huge for me. Great, amazing. And I love how you've taken the principles and really applied them, and it sounds perfect. And it's interesting, and I want to ask you a little bit more about the intention, because everything really starts with intention. You can't get to any of the other 2 without that. And you gave me an example of really just being intentional in the way you're approaching, unpaid invoices, for example. What were you like in the past with that, and where are you now? I think in the past it was a fragmented setup, a fragmented process. Over here was the work, over here was the money side of things. There was a disconnect. There's something about our relationship, Rishi, which I've seen mirrored in my relationship with my clients. So from the start, I knew that you were committed to my success, which was just really powerful to me. Which is why I wanted to work with you in the first place, and why I think we've covered the ground that we have. And in the same way, I think some of the most powerful client conversations I've had has been where a penny has dropped for them. This guy, me, is committed to my success. the client has realised how committed I am to them succeeding. And for me to do that, I have to make sure I'm valuing myself and saying to the client, this is how much that will cost you. The thing is, they are then happy to pay that because they can see that the value I'm offering. So rather than my creative service almost existing in a bubble, yes, I enable you to do this so that you can achieve this, this and this. And by articulating those things that matter to them, that sense of my value has shifted both in their eyes and in mine, which has been so powerful.
So well done on really, being able to have the courageous conversation around, this is what the investment is for the client. And I think that that's a great start. I always have some onboarding, and inside of that, we cover things like what are your personal values, and then we set some really precision focused goals so that we can really get clear on, where are we and where do we want to get to. Mm-hmm. How do you feel, that level of intentionality has helped you?
I think it's been huge. On the values side of it, I think there was a case of me thinking I knew what my values were, but there's a real power to articulating them. Mm-hmm. And actually writing them out and looking at them, going, oh my gosh, so this is who I am. Taking a step back from myself, as I do with clients. And I think on the goals side of things, it had a real impact on the way I was with clients and the relationships. It just brings a crispness to things. I think it's one of those things where, how was I doing what I was doing without this intentionality? So I've been very good at setting goals for clients, but not really for myself.
Got it.
So that's been very powerful.
I know that earlier this year, just a couple of months back, you signed one of your biggest ever contracts. Mm-hmm. And it was so big that it actually encompassed 65% of your entire previous year revenue. Mm-hmm. Tell me more about that, and how did it feel to take such a big deal and price yourself, start to price yourself where you're really worth? I mean, talk me through that a little bit.
Okay, so I realised there's where I feel now with it, which is comfy, and there was a point where I didn't. So there was, let's call it a courageous conversation with the client, where rather than just talk about the project in hand, I said to him, look, this is actually what I'm planning to do over the next year. I only want to work with a handful of clients. I want to work more deeply so that there's a real significant return on investment for you. And he came back to me and said, well, I'd love to be one of those clients. And that courageous conversation was key. But this 65% business, it's two things for me. On the one hand, there's this, you chump, why were you allowing yourself, in what universe was it okay to charge below your worth? The other thing that goes on for me is almost like returning to a place where I belong. So I think 20 years ago I was head of copy at a design agency, mm-hmm. and I'm now back to earning that level again.
Amazing.
In between times, it's like I follow my heart to some interesting places, and I think because I've been doing some things I really love, at some level I've thought it's not okay to charge so much because I'm loving what I'm doing. And now I think a few pieces have fallen into place where no, it is okay because what I'm doing now is actually more valuable.
It's just so brilliant, Jonathan, and I just really celebrate you stepping back into that space that you were 20 years ago and bringing that back to the present day. And I'd love to just tap into, there must have been a feeling that you had in the moment of pricing it the way that you needed to have it to be 65% of your entire previous year revenue. So there must have been a feeling at that exact moment when you had the conversation and closed on the deal as well. Tell me about that.
Yeah, there was a real feeling of this is something to celebrate. And it feels like a beginning. It doesn't feel like, now I'm done. It does feel like the beginning of a new chapter where I really can charge my worth from doing what I love. And I know that there's services that I'm sitting on that are needed out there. Mm-hmm. And the way that I do it is different. It is an unusual cocktail of things I bring to the mix. And I think there's something about stepping into my power, if you like, or feeling comfy in my skin in a business setting.
Brilliant. And then you've repeated that to have the next project also be 65% of your prior year revenue. So in total, 130% of your prior year revenue in just 2 contracts. When you closed again on that, in that moment, what was the feeling?
When something is new, there's that, can this really be so? Can this really be so? And there's noticing that diminishing. So with the first client, there was this sense of, there's a real sense of achievement. With the second one, there's like, this is getting more straightforward. Something just to add, there's clients that I'm going out and seeking and that are saying yes to me, and there's also the clients that I'm saying no to. So I think what's happened is there's something about boundaries here, and realizing this is the kind of work I need to do, these are the kind of clients I need to work with because they get my value. And if they don't, then I need to protect myself. I need to not go there. I need to come up with other digitized offerings to give to those who can't afford me. And that's okay. That's okay. Because there's something about, as a creative, I can't possibly say no to anybody. And
brilliant.
And it is okay.
It is okay. It absolutely is okay. And what you've set there is the new norm.
Exactly that. Exactly that. So, and there is, going back to that idea of rhythm, there's a rhythm to things, and there's a pattern to thinking, and there's a way in which I'm scripting calls in a way I never did before.
Right.
Which means they have a structure and a solidity to them that wasn't there before. Yeah. I'm happy to think on my feet, and sometimes that's a blessing, and sometimes it's less of a blessing when I resist doing things in a structured way that I can then scale.
And there was a accumulation point to all of this for you, Jonathan, which is, and you put out a post on LinkedIn, and if it's okay, I just want to quote you on that, because I think it was a really great write-up, and I've got it here with me. And you said, "Many thanks, Rishi. And if LinkedIn had a gratitude icon to click, I'd be clicking it now. Your support over recent months has been pivotal in making this my most profitable and productive period of work for many years, and by a decent measure. I can feel a new kind of momentum to my working life, and I can also feel myself lifting my foot off the brake pedal as I really start to scale the work that I most love." So a big hearty thanks for all of that. And you can already see, just reading that out, I'm smiling, because I love the idea that you're bringing the momentum and lifting your foot off the brake pedal. Tell me a little bit more about that.
It's funny, what comes to mind is a combination of process related things and human things. So there's when like cogs in a wheel, when a process is well oiled, then there's that kind of straightforward flow. But I think there's also another kind of human flow, is that when I'm feeling confident about what I'm offering, the client picks up on that and things just happen much more quickly. And it's like, if I have a doubt about something, the client's going to pick up on that. I think that's one of the things that's come up in our conversations. So going back to when you said about when that 65% contract came through, I think one of the emotions in that mix was slight surprise that it wasn't a big issue for the client at all. He had no qualms in paying that. And one of the points that came up, crikey, yeah, I suppose that would be an extra value. One of the things I articulated about his whole team seeing the value of what his business offered, so that there was more productivity, more alignment, greater impact, with an impact on the bottom line. Mm-hmm. He said, of course, I'd never thought I hadn't seen that piece of the jigsaw. So there was no qualms on his side about the money, and an excitement on his part about what I could bring. So there's a momentum, you could call it an exponential thing, where as clients start playing back to me the value I'm seeing in me, they see it, that kind of spirals. So I do feel I'm at the beginning of something new and exciting because of this work that we've been doing over the last 12 months.
Amazing. And I love that you've achieved this, releasing the foot from the brake pedal, and more importantly, momentum, which I call flow. Mm-hmm. It's just this morning, before we came to the shoot, I went for a run, and I just meditated on, who I want to be for my clients. Mm-hmm. And it's really important to me that we create this really great win-win situation. And I just love to understand, what's the impact you feel that I've had on your life in a short sentence or a paragraph?
Two aspects of that spring to mind. One part is quite personal, internal. It's my sense of me. There's something there that's shifted in terms of acknowledging my value in a business context. And because that's been an area where I think I've been playing small in some ways, by stepping into the fullness of that's had an impact in other areas. So one area is that sense of me. The other aspect has been quite practical in terms of, with that different sense of who I can be in a business context, practically translating that into different steps that bring that into being, that achieve financial goals, etc.
So, Jonathan, I'd love to know what's next for you. Tell us a little bit about the service, who's your target market, and what you're really playing for in business. What's on the horizon for you? Great.
Thanks for asking, Rishi. Well, I think one main thing is to work with a handful of clients more deeply. These are clients who are, I suppose, experiencing a balance of ambition and frustration. And the main thing for them, a little like what it was for me, is making their value visible. Making their value visible so that a number of things happen. One is that they're able to attract the clients they really want far more easily, so that their internal team is on the same page, that they see the picture. Imagine trying to do a jigsaw without a picture on a box. They get the big picture of what the company offers, and so that changes their communications and their alignment, their productivity and their impact. So the combination of those two things has an impact on the bottom line. So when a client works with me, it's an investment, and they get my commitment to their success. So one piece is working with a handful of clients in that way. The two other pieces which are evolving, one is about digitizing myself for smaller clients. So I think I've said to you before, spent more than 30 years building creative solutions that work. I want to spend the next 30, I'll be some age then, showing people how to do it. So there's an educational piece. And then the final piece, which I want to make space for, is just off-piece creative adventures. There's all kinds of other things that feed the fire, fuel the fire, whatever you want to call it, that sharpen the wheel, sharpen the saw, that I want to do as well. So it's making space for those creative off-piece adventures that I can then come back and do the other two.
It sounds amazing. Would you like to say or add anything to what you've already said about the experience over these months where we've really been on this journey together?
If you and I were to look at a video of where we started, I just see that I was in a very, very different place. So it's been a very rich journey that hasn't just been about business. In talking to clients about making their value visible, I see that a big penny has dropped for me about what my value is to clients. And seeing my own value is something that I simply didn't really see before. So that's been huge.
Jonathan, so many people are interested in taking this journey that you've been on with me inside of this business, selling in alignment, where they can really raise their game around their value, what they charge, which is just a byproduct of really raising their game around their value. What would you say to people who are thinking about joining me on this journey?
Okay, I'd say to those people who have a belief in the service that they offer, but for whom that word selling is a slightly prickly thing, then it's a bit of a no-brainer, really, because I think there is this art of selling without selling that has emerged for me on this journey. This way in which there's something natural about the conversations that I have with clients because I'm committed to their success, that it is no longer about selling, it's about being of service. So the way, and it's one thing to understand that intellectually, but it's quite another to understand it experientially. So I think if someone wants to have a new experience of how to value themselves and their business so their clients can value them and their business, then I heartily recommend signing up and being one of your clients, because it's been a phenomenal experience for me.
Brilliant. So amazing. Jonathan, I just want to say that I really appreciate how open you've made yourself to this process, how coachable you've made yourself, and just celebrate the transformation that you've achieved. I think it's phenomenal. Thank you so much for taking the time out to come down and just document the journey. It's been amazing, and I'm so grateful for you. So thank you.
Thank you, Rishi. Thank you for today, and thanks for the journey so far. To be continued.